Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving straight into something that is so fundamental to the human experience, yet honestly so deeply misunderstood. We're going to completely break down the hidden mechanics behind successful long-term commitments. We're tossing out all those tired cliches and focusing entirely on the core underlying data of human connection. Let's kick things off with a pretty heavy quote from our source material that really hits hard. This comes from a very raw anecdote about a young boy who confided that he was absolutely terrified of the very idea of getting married. And why? Because he had watched his own aunt and uncle go through a devastating divorce. The way he saw it, the failure of that commitment didn't just end some legal contract. It literally broke them. He saw firsthand that they were never the same people again. Section 1. The fear of marriage, understanding the apprehension. Now that fear of relationship failure, it is very real. And let's be honest, we see it all around us every single day. Seeing structures crumble right in front of you, especially close to home, it makes total sense why someone would develop a deep apprehension. Nobody wants to end up broken. But what if our entire framework for looking at marriage is just unnecessarily complex? What if when you strip away all the heavy societal expectations, marriage is really just friendship? I want you to rethink the entire concept with me right now and look at it as something deeply familiar, something you already know how to do. Section 2. The true foundation, redefining the core. The core thesis here is incredibly practical. I mean, think about it. You don't just lock eyes with a total stranger across a crowded room and instantly map out your 50-year anniversary. You don't look at someone and say, yep, that's the lifelong friend I've been searching for. That's movie logic, not reality. Real connection takes a totally different starting point. Marriage is simply a solid friendship where your ways of living line up. It's an active process of evaluation. You're checking if their lifestyle actually fits with yours. You're asking yourself, before anything else, can this person truly be my friend? Because if they can be your friend first, that is where a successful, long-lasting marriage actually starts.
Section 3. Why friendships last. The mechanics of connection.
Okay, to really wrap our heads around this shift in perspective, we need to look at how regular platonic friendships actually happen. Because they form organically, right? There's no strict master plan or ticking clock. They form based on mutual benefit. First, you meet without an agenda. Second, you just notice some alignment. Maybe they have a really great character trait. Third, you find motivation. Our source uses this fantastic example. Imagine you struggle a bit with laziness and you meet someone who is incredibly motivated. You're not being a parasite, but you recognize that sticking around this person actually benefits your life and helps you over your own hurdles. And that naturally leads to step 4. You stick around because you genuinely want that positive influence in your life. If you're consistent in a friendship, you're going to notice the dynamic pretty quickly. A true friendship, it is constantly pulling you forward. It offers motivation, it offers encouragement, and it can literally spark a massive personal turnaround in your life. But on the flip side, if you can't keep up, or the dynamic turns negative, it becomes demotivating. It pulls you back. Friendships last for years and years precisely because they provide that forward momentum we all desperately need. And here is a major test of that bond. External factors do not erase a true friendship. Sometimes great connections are interrupted by things completely out of your control. Someone relocates, or tragically, death separates you. But the underlying bond is so strong that if you were to meet that relocated friend years later, the friendship would still be totally solid. The foundation survives the circumstances. Section 4. The false foundations. The trap of the superficial. So now that we know what a real foundation looks like, we have to ask, why do marriages actually fail? Well, you have to contrast that solid foundation of friendship, alignment, and mutual motivation with false foundations, things like money, power, or influence. The really sad reality is that a lot of people aren't actually friends with their spouses. They entered the relationship based on these totally superficial metrics. They fell into the trap of marrying for external benefits rather than genuine internal alignment. Let's break down exactly what happens when that flawed structure is put to the test. So there's no underlying friendship, right? And the whole thing was motivated by money or influence. What inevitably happens when life throws a curveball and those superficial elements are stripped away? The entire structure falls apart. A marriage without friendship is fundamentally doomed from the start because it literally lacks the necessary groundwork to survive any real hardship. Section 5. Love versus divorce. The surprising truth. This brings us to a completely counterintuitive revelation about why marriages actually end. And honestly, it goes against almost everything pop culture tells us about relationship failure. When you actually sit down and talk to divorced people and ask them why they split, you'll hear a laundry list of logistical and emotional reasons. But remarkably, most of the time, the love is still there. The romantic feelings and that deep care often remain way after the papers are signed. So, the absolutely crucial point here is that the missing ingredient in those failed marriages actually wasn't the romantic passion. Crazy, right? Love can entirely survive a divorce. What actually causes the collapse is the lack of friendship. The relationship simply couldn't sustain itself because that foundational alignment, that everyday ability to pull each other forward as friends, was entirely missing. Which brings us to a final, pretty provocative thought. As you evaluate your own connections, I want you to really ponder this. If love survives the divorce, did the friendship ever exist at all? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this breakdown has equipped you with a sharper, more focused lens for understanding the incredible mechanics of human connection. Until next time, keep learning and keep evaluating those foundations.